Hello and welcome to the very first Sonic Fruit film podcast, where we aim to discuss movies through the simple act of talking about our favourites. I'm Bennet Maples, and today I'm joined by the effervescent Sam Hoad, media academic and picture house employee, and by the multi-talented Mike Stiff, filmmaker and animator. In this episode, we're discussing Jaws, which was not the documented expose of the dental industry that we'd expected, but is, it turns out, a cracking movie. So, let's talk about Jaws.
Jaws.
Which I know is Sam's favourite film, I think, in the world.
Of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? Go.
Put me on the spot. I don't know, it's always been my favourite film, right from when I first saw it. And I suppose what's kind of cool is that as I've grown up, I've come to appreciate it as a film rather than you like the way you look at a movie as a kid. So I have a deeper appreciation for it as time goes on.
How old were you when you first saw it? Because I saw it on TV when it was first on.
Wow.
And it scared the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah. I can remember having seen possibly Jaws 3 or the second one and being really excited because I knew that it was a really big classic film, and taping it because we went out for the night, coming home and just switching the telly on right at the end where Quint gets chomped in half.
Yeah, that was the bit that really got me.
And being really disturbed by it. And I'm still disturbed by it. That scene, I do often have to look away because I think that is its most graphic and unpleasant. I mean, a lot of people say it's the head in coming out of the boat and the shocks that like that. But no, I think that death at the end is the worst part. And how it's a PG, I have no idea. I don't think it was at the time. There's something about its recertification, but yeah. So, and then I remember going to bed thinking, I don't know if I can watch it. And then I watched it the next day and knew that bit was coming and nothing else kind of upset me as much as that. So then, and then I was ill for quite a long time when I was young. And this is in the days when you had only a few films on video and you used to have a go-to or maybe one or two that you used to watch over and over again. And so that became Jaws for me, and it never lost any of its appeal or capacity to entertain, really. Yeah.
Okay. It is one of those funny ones where every single person who really appears on screen, including, single lines, there's a character there. It's a really solid piece of work. Each one, when the mayor starts to talk, you instantly know who he is, what's his motivation, where he's going to sort of stand on this. And so it's so rich with every little island character is something. It's not just to facilitate to get to the next scene. You kind of get a little glimpse into almost like a different story that's running.
Yeah, even that other police officer who's almost kind of just like the comedy sidekick.
The comedy rookie, yeah.
But like you first introduced to him when he finds the limb at the beginning, and he's he's in genuine shock, and you can see that he's never been exposed to anything like that in his little kind of island life.
Yeah, and it's something I've always wondered, because never having read the book, Peter Benchley's book, how much of that was taken from the book, the character details and their backgrounds and stuff. But it doesn't really essentially matter, because obviously not having read the book, they all are perfectly formed. I know there's quite a lot of disparity between the book and the film in Hooper has an affair with Chief Brody's wife.
Oh, really?
And is killed
in
the cage at the end, I think. That's what happens.
But Benchley adapted it as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he was on board, wasn't he? And he's actually in it, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, there's a little cameo as a newsreader after the attack, and the bit where they're all kind of patrolling and it's the bank holiday weekend. Mm-hmm. There's a bit he does to camera, and that's Benchley. But yeah.
The book, I haven't read the book.
Have you read it?
No, I've read the first few chapters. I just literally picked up in the library when I was in A-levels, and I just read the first few chapters of it. And I wish I kind of read the whole book now. But I just sort of flicked through it. And that opening scene with the drunk guy, really drunk guy, and the girl is pretty good in the book. I mean, there's a bit where she is just swimming, and then she goes, I've caught my leg on some coral. And then she's like, feels down, and all she feels is the stump and then the flesh. And that, I think, is what Steven Spielberg does. It's a reveal. Nothing's ever just given to you. It's like the same with the guy, the rookie cop. you don't just see the body or the hand, you see him reacting, you see him calling over, you see them both reacting, and then you see it. And throughout it, there's that always there. It's never the reveal of what you want to see, including Robert Shaw. You don't see his character, you see scratching on a board, and then you go like, who's that? What's his, why is he, and it's always a reveal. And I think that's, now I wish I'd read the book, because I bet that's in there throughout it. It's always a reveal, and it's only ever. And I think what Steven Spielberg does, obviously, don't show the shark. That's quite a classic. How little. Okay, towards the end, but there's so much teasing, isn't there? Of like,
Sure.
And in the book, I know it's only referred to as the fish. The fish swam.
The fish, yeah.
Yeah, and that's cool. So that's. But that's as much as I know about the book, is the opening couple of chapters, and I do think Steven Spielberg captured that tease and that reveal.
Well, that's what I often wondered. I mean, it's only his second full feature, wasn't it?
It feels very much like he's hitting the ground fully formed, doesn't it? But I was gonna say, you were talking there about not seeing the shark, and classically, everybody obviously refers to the fact that it wasn't meant to be like that. You were meant to see the shark much earlier, and the kind of animatronic stuff didn't work. So it does seem like serendipitously it becomes this amazing film.
Yeah.
And marks the director he's going to be.
Yeah.
But as you say, everything else is in reaction. He knows how to tell the story.
Yeah.
And I guess the fact that the shark didn't work doesn't stop him from making a great film.
Yeah.
So that's a mark that right off the bat he's.
Well, have either of you seen Duel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of dry run for Jaws in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
With the whole pursuit. Unseen monster. I mean, that obviously you never see the driver in the truck, do you?
No.
But it kind of, if you go back and watch Duel after having seen Jaws, he had a bit of practice, or he knew it. But it's so masterful, isn't it?
Yeah, but even then, you can see. I mean, Duel is an extraordinary film, considering it is literally a guy being chased by a truck. There's almost nothing else to the entire film, and it's a compelling story.
And that's where people don't give storytellers enough credit, because that's the difference between Steven Spielberg taking a truck trying to ram a car off the road and, I don't know, Brett Ratner or someone really rubbish, someone who isn't held as a fantastic director or even writer. That's the difference. He can take something small and make it big, which is just brilliant, and it's compelling, isn't it? It's
I found it interesting, actually. Recently, there's been a lot of a kind of reassessment of, obviously, the film industry is changing massively in the way that films get made and the budgets of films that get made. And actually, a lot of the smaller films that are coming through are being compared to early Spielberg, because actually what you were just saying, that ability to tell a story is becoming much more important if you're going to get anything made, apart from potentially a 200 million blockbuster, which can still be pretty storyless. But
do you think that's because it's so easy now to do anything? Whereas before a film could get by on the merits of it. Oh my God, it's never been seen before. 50,000 strong army. Whereas now, anyone that's open to anyone. So that now means nothing. So now we're actually almost in probably in a good way is going back to going, let's go back to storytelling.
Yeah, I think what's happening is there's been a kind of fracture, so that we're getting that spectacle kind of films where we might want to go and see Transformers or Fast and Furious, where it's it's just about the set pieces and it's just about the stunts, and they're great fun for what they are. And then the storytelling is either going into the TV or it's going into kind of low budget films.
Yeah, very much.
Getting back to Jaws, do you think that Steven Spielberg almost is a detriment to him that everyone says, the fish didn't work and then he had to do that? Because I think he would have made that anyway. I think he would have probably got into the cutting room and gone, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
But then I go, because I don't know the barrels. Do you know, were the barrels only there? Something in my brain goes, they had to use the barrels because the fish didn't work.
Visualization of yeah. That I think I've heard that as well. And but obviously he relied so heavily as a result of not being able to show it on the score, and that in the absence of seeing the shark, every time those famous notes come on, it's so. Yeah, I mean, maybe that wouldn't have been as to the fore had he been able to show the shark. I don't know, but so much of its success, I think, is down to, well, there's so many aspects, but what a great chunk of it has to be the score, doesn't it, really? Which is, I mean, it's not just the 2-note theme, it's all all the embellishments and stuff that happen throughout, and the music on the island, and I think...
Yeah, I mean, I think in a film this good, it's almost testament to how good the rest of the score must be that we don't really talk about it and we don't really think about it. It's just, it's serving the film that well. And as you say, we're not seeing the shark a lot of the time. The tension is still there. The belief that we know it's coming, we know where it is all the time is still there. A lot of that is the music, yeah.
Something that I was relaying to someone the other day was I also think what you're saying about the characters and how well drawn they are is the casting. I think it's amazing casting, especially the 3 leads.
That trio is amazing.
But do you know who he wanted originally? So he wanted Lee Marvin to play Quint,
right?
And then he wanted Redford and Newman.
Really?
Yeah. So Redford was going to play Hooper, and Paul Newman was going to be Chief Brody. And they, for whatever reason, couldn't get them. But I think serendipitously, again, the people that they did land on were perfect. You can't imagine.
Mind you, I'm going to go out on a lim and say that would still have been quite a good film.
It would have worked pretty well.
It would have been a different film, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
It's kind of cool, isn't it? Yeah. Imagining how that would have gone.
But Quint particularly, I think, actually, I mean, I love Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider. I mean, it is a great pairing, but I mean, Quint is amazing. His presence, you kind of still manage to want to like him.
Yeah.
Which is an extraordinary accomplishment because he's just an unpleasant guy and he's not nice to them at any point.
No. And by all accounts, he was Quint. If you heard this, Lorraine Gary, who plays Brody's wife, said she was terrified of him.
Oh, really?
On set and everything. He was just this presence, and he was this hard-drinking, hard-bitten, gruff, scary man. But like you say, he's sort of Captain Ahab to...
So let me put you a trivia, because on that, the Indianapolis speech, which is really kind of probably the point at which actually we feel enough sympathy to really care when Quint does finally bite the bullet, but he gets bitten. It was written by someone else? Was that a script doctoring?
Yeah, Carl Gottlieb, I think.
Right.
One of, that whole LA scene, Lucas, De Palma, and he was one of their friends, and I think he helped a lot with that. I don't know how much input Shaw had on it, but he was, I think, a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
So when you're watching him tell that story, there's
enough there to draw.
Yeah.
Because it's true, isn't it? That did actually happen.
Yeah, in fact, they're making a film about it, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
With Nicolas Cage.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And
I
second,
like Nicolas Cage.
Absolutely, we all do. The Jaws 2 was going to be that, wasn't it? Originally, I think the original plan when they were talking about Jaws 2 was that it was going to be a prequel and it was going to be the Indianapolis story, yeah.
But that scene is, I think, the pivot of almost the whole picture. Obviously, there's that split halfway through where it goes from the land then onto the boat.
It's the scene I always think of when I think, I love that film. That's the scene I'm thinking of. There's then lots of bits that obviously are classic, but
it's funny because that is the point where they almost bond. And they almost become the little group, and they all get on, and then it all kind of gets destroyed. And it almost goes the other way, doesn't it? It sort of almost gives the audience hope that they're actually going to become this kind of great team, and they sort of don't really quite get there because Quint gets a bit kind of...
It's a fantastic beat, focused. I think it's a great lesson for anybody making a horror film, because a lot of horror films these days are just trying to just ramp the tension and ramp the tension and ramp the tension, and just that sense that you can just stop for a minute and enjoy the characters.
Yeah, no shark.
And then it's all just it's just non-stop from then, really, isn't it? That final attack is then much the rest of the film. And
I think you're right, actually. If you didn't have that scene in there, you wouldn't care so much when he dies. And also, in the storytelling, it's great to have someone like him who is an abrasive character you don't like, but then give him that, and then he goes back to being quite unlikable again, but you don't feel the same about him. Do you know what I mean? No. You kind of then, as you say, root from a bit, and you kind of want them all to be all right, and then it's fantastically well done.
Yeah, the pacing.
Just that,
Pacing,
is great as well, yeah.
Something that you don't seem to get these days. Pacing's so often off in movies, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is why when you do get a good movie like that gets it right. It's so noticeable. But yeah, the slow build, and it's masterful, like we said.
It really is, because I mean it's quite brave as well, because as you say, two very distinct films. The bit where they're at land, and then the bit where they actually go out to sea.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed when I watch it how far into the film we are before they get in the boat. An awful lot of the film is on the land, and then you've still got this massive, great sequence where they're
one set, three actors. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And some barrels.
You get that impression that where they filmed it, the whole kind of town really got behind it. You can tell some of the extras are just townspeople.
Yeah, Martha's Vineyard, wasn't it? It was shot.
Was it? Yeah. And you really get that feeling, and it feels real. Like the child that dies and then comes up and slaps him. It's so good because it feels so real. That is just like someone's aunt, or so. Do you know what I mean? That feels like it's not like she's not glamorous, or do you know what I mean? No offense to her, but she's
absolutely.
Like someone who just lives there.
Yeah.
And has a kid that.
Your investment in that moment, that sense that you want to hate her because she's wrong, and she shouldn't be blaming him, but actually you're entirely with it. You completely understand where she's coming from, and you can just see the grief that's stricken her. Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's incredibly naturalistic dialogue when you think about it. Certainly on the island. I mean, obviously the Indianapolis speech is a monologue kind of thing, but there's a lot of overlapping, people talking at the same time, and just the way that they all talk to each other, I think adds to the sense of the reality, which is why when you get moments where the Kintner kid, I think he's called, gets eaten, and then that bit with his mother, like you say, is so shocking. And also Brody's such a likeable character, he's a proverbial fish out of water. At the beginning, he's just moved to the island, hasn't he? And
from the out, he's a very likeable guy. Isn't he?
You got to have a hero sort of thing.
But not a archetypal hero. He's pretty kind of he's an everyday Joe, isn't he?
Yeah.
So,
Scared of water. Doesn't always sort of speak out as well, does he? He kind of does get a bit pushed around to start off with.
And as you say, but rounded from almost the first step. And the same with Hooper.
Yeah.
You kind of that you like him as soon as he arrives.
Yeah.
And that's despite the fact he's quite dismissive of everybody.
Yeah, he's got that intellectual superiority to a degree, hasn't he? And I remember hearing Dreyfuss say like that he was offered the part, I think, and turned it down, and then a film that he'd just done or had just come out, and he saw himself in it, and he was so appalled by his work in it and the film itself that he pleaded to get this chance to play Hooper, but he came back to Spielberg and said, "You've got to let me do it," kind of thing. No, I turned you down. And so you get the sense that he relished that opportunity because he's a really cool character, isn't he?
Yeah, well, generally, I think he's just a great guy, isn't he?
I think the testament to Steven Spielberg again. I go back to, but at when the is it the Kinder kid?
Kintner
kid dies. The bit actually. One of the best bits that made me go, I've got to definitely remember that, is a lot of films would have the whole build-up exactly like that, most of them copying Spielberg, because he kind of sort of set so many of those kind of rules up sort of thing, or that the kid dies, everyone runs out of the thing, it's discovered that the kid's there. But what he did there, which I really like, is then everyone's standing there, and then just the mother just steps out and like looks about. And it's like... It's that aftermath. Everything stopped, and she just sits there, and you kind of go, you connect so much more to that. Oh, that it's not just someone's died. It's like that's a kid, that's the mother,
someone's child,
that's the she can't find, and that's like plays on all fears of anyone who's got kids. I'm sure that idea of just like, oh crap, do you know what I mean? It's sort of, so I was just like, that's it. Those are the bits that. It's those extra little bits where it just takes it to that next level.
That whole sequence is...
His understanding of family is always amazing, isn't it? I mean, that's what makes E.T.
E.T.
We'll discuss that another time, but...
Close Encounters.
Yeah.
Family dynamic.
Absolutely.
But bring it back to sound, that sequence, the build-up to that Lilo attack.
That's another one where, another example of what everybody else would do is, that's a big death. You would score the hell out of that. That's when you'd have the music and, let's make sure that the audience realises how horrible this is. And also, what's going on?
Yeah.
Are we certain that we did actually see someone get killed there? Have we really just seen a kid be eaten by a shark? you'd score that and it would just be a horror film.
Yeah, because it's just a camera shot.
And
isn't it? It's just
he just lets it play, and it's just there's stuff going on the beach, and no one's quite sure what happened. And as you say, it's the aftermath. It's there's a mother who hasn't got a child anymore.
Yeah.
That's when you know that what you just saw was definitely something took out a kid on a lino.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just you just hear that at the beach, don't you? Just hear that general sense.
Like the radio on in the background. There's the guy with his dog who goes missing. Do you remember that? He's going, Pippin. So the suspicion is that the dog's been got as well.
Yeah.
And then like the whole bad hat Harry, where the old man comes up to him and says, why aren't you in the water, chief? And all. Yeah, it's great. Ratchets sort of very slowly, and then this big shock. Yeah. And that bit, I remember thinking when I watched it the first time, and still, it's pretty grim, isn't it? It's
That's the one that really sticks out for me. Like, all of them, and all of the attacks, but that one just because of that.
It's played for emotional impact, whereas, as you say, the Quint is the only bit really that is played for gore.
Yeah.
Which is probably because of who he is, because at that point, I guess they feel that he's the one that you can kill off like that because he's the one that.
Well, one of my favourite stories. You have to shut me up because I'm going to keep talking.
Please do.
Is that bit at the end where the shark breaches comes out of the water and lands on the boat, and Quint sort of slips in. But I remember hearing about the making of and them saying, the audience is never going to believe it. That's ridiculous. The shark's not going to fly out of the water onto the boat. And Spielberg saying, if I've done my job by that stage, they'll believe anything I do, kind of thing, which is amazing. Cool. And his confidence, but just knowing that, because when you think about it, it's pretty daft, isn't it?
Yeah.
It launches itself out of the water onto the boat, kind of thing, and they don't do that, but you buy it totally.
Well, the thing, because you buy by that point that the shark has a vendetta.
Yeah.
You do buy because there's just those little things of it's coming back. It's always coming back.
Yeah, it's always turning.
And you're like, well, what? And they're constantly questioning the fact that it's coming back, and it's so aggressively coming back that it just seems to have a thing against them. It's going to get them, come what may. It's not going for it's not swimming somewhere else where it might find easy food. It's taken again, these guys.
It's taking the whole film.
Small beats.
And there's a mythology behind sharks in that film. If you watch, like Brody starts to learn about it, he starts to open books and starts to learn about these things, and it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it's been fed in that it's smart, it's 25 foot long, but that doesn't. You don't start off there. No. You don't go, opening scenes, 25 foot long shark. It's a very different film. But
that's Deep Blue Sea.
Or Sharknado. So I really like that. I can totally see why Steven would say that, because he has just fed these things in throughout all of it. So by the end, you just whatever
perfect
happens.
Killing machine kind of thing. What does he say? All it does is eat, swim, and make other baby sharks or something. He says, doesn't he? So, great. So many great bits.
Yeah.
So you should watch it.
Yeah, that seems a fair conclusion. Which only leaves me to say a big thank you to Sam and Mike and to you for listening. If there's anything that you'd like to hear us discuss, and after that rambling nonsense, why wouldn't you? Then you can email podcast@sonicfruit.co.uk or tweet us via @sonic_fruit. The Sonic Fruit Film Podcast is produced by Sonic Fruit, with music by Carl Cole and engineering by Jake Kenny and Jordan Brett. For more information, check out sonicfruit.co.uk.